So I'm comparing against an integer, but then I'm sleeping on a condition variable. And all that is telling the system, if anyone ever signals on this, I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for this condition variable. Okay? It's not I'm waiting for 10 for counter to get up to 10. It's not what I'm doing when I'm doing the wait. I'm waiting until somebody tells me they've done something like this. Okay. Now, are we really sleeping on the condition? And the answer is yes, we are, but the condition could be complex. The condition could be, all right, do we have more than 10,000 geometric figures in this graphics frame? Okay. Do I want to keep recalculating that every time there's a refresh? No, so I'll just say when somebody says, hey, I've written more than that, I'll just signal the condition variable. The condition variable is a location of memory. That's all it is. Okay, and all we're saying is, did that section, quote, change? It doesn't have to actually change. I mean, is anyone waiting on this? And in x86, we call them channels, or CHAM. Okay, and all they are is memory address. So it's kind of interesting the way they work out.
So just out of curiosity, could we just get rid of that while statement on the left?
On this side?
On the left side, yeah.
Okay, what's we're doing is we're signaling every time we go in here and increment this. Okay. Now, the reality is this. There's no particular reason to have a while loop, right? Because we're not going to get signal until the condition is met.
Right. Okay.
All right. So yeah, I would take the while loop out because it doesn't do anything.
Okay.
Okay. But this was the magic code that Wikipedia said it was.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Well, actually, it might have been Stack Overflow, in which case it's clever because it's not real good code, but it solves the problem. That's the Stack Overflow way.
Isn't it that the B thread can be ran multiple times and increments the counter?
Yeah.
So it's a counter check, and so it'll go. So if it incremented it once, so it went from 0 to 1, then counter would be at 1, and thread A would be called because it was signaled that was updated.
Oh, this one won't receive the signal until counter is greater than or equal to 10. Right. In which case, this one waiting while it's less than 10 is kind of silly. It's only going to go into the wait once in a conditional wait. Because it's not going to be woken up until counter is greater than or equal to 10.
Oh, I see it.
Okay. I'm guessing this one probably came from Stack Overflow. That's the sort of thing they like to do. You would look at that and go like, really? Okay. So, condition variables, one of the cool things about condition variables is they create an environment called a monitor. And monitors are really cool because if you set your monitor up correctly, following the rules, it's automatically thread safe because of the way it works. Okay, and we'll talk a little tiny bit about what a monitor is. There's an appendix for our OSTAT book, I think, that talks about monitors. And the term monitor is sort of falling out of favor for some reason. And it's kind of being looked at as condition variables or semaphores. It's just being good programming practice for that. So the monitor is going to have a state lock associated with it. We'll see that in a few minutes as we talk about semaphores. But you'll hold the lock, check a condition, and off you go. Okay. Interestingly enough, condition variables can be always rewritten as true or false. Does this condition hold, true or false? Okay. So it turns out that that we can take even complex things. Like, is there any place in my house that gets more than 200 lumens during the day? Okay. Turns out that we can phrase that as a true or false question. All right. So it turns out that conditions, or we can say, you know, if we have 700 different choices, number them all, is choice equal to 300? That's also true or false. So the place where things get a little bit different, though, is when we have to count. Okay, so we can count, we can do conditions. We can also say count the way I just said, you know, we can number all the choices from 1 to 700 and say, is it equal to 1? But what if we don't care so much about the counting, just about the mutual exclusion it provides for us? So the most general piece of concurrency control that we're going to take a look at before the midterm is going to be the semaphore. And semaphores are the problem the Donning philosopher's problem was invented to solve. Now, semaphores are composed of two pieces: a counting variable and a weight cube. Condition variables were composed of a condition variable and a weight cube. Locks don't have weights. Binary semaphores, as their counting variables, are locks. They're restricted to 0 and 1, okay, which is also known as false and true, or unlocked and locked, right? So, we may have a particular type of problem for which counting the number of entities is correct. Right? So let's check a condition variable. And let's say the condition is, if there are any free tables, then let someone sit down. Okay. Now, how are we going to do this with a computer? How many of you say, Siri, how many people are in this room? Siri's going to go, let me play a song for you. So, it's easier for us, though, to say we have 10 tables in our restaurant, and there are customers currently assigned to 4 of them. So now I have 6 that are free. Someone else comes in, give them a table, decrement the number of available tables. If I get down to 0, then I say, you're going to have to sit over there, sir. Whenever anybody leaves, they signal us that they've left. And then when they signal us, we say, hey, is anybody waiting? If anybody's waiting, we go, there's your table. All right? That's how it works. So when things need to be counted, and I like using a restaurant analogy. Semaphores, by the way, are unbribable, like a lot of maitre d's actually are. You may have run into that. I don't know if it happens at the food plots across the street. Can you bribe to get your order?
I'll try it and let you know.
So, the two types of semaphores that we have are binary semaphore, and that's just a lock with a weight cube. We just put it back here because it's the definition of a semaphore has a variable and a cube, whereas a lock does not have a cube. Okay, we said a weight lock, but the reality is it's just a binary semaphore. A general semaphore is also known as a counting semaphore, and it can take on any integer value. Right? Now, we say it can take any integer value, positive, negative, or 0. And that's true. The elsewhere in here, the piece that I brought up, is it talks about not allowing the semaphore to go negative. Okay, and there's two different schools of thoughts on that. One of them is if you allow the count to go negative, it tells you how many threads are waiting. Okay. Because if it goes to 0 and now you have to wait, it'll subtract 1 and go to -1. It says there's 1 waiting. Another person comes along, does the same thing, they're waiting now, it's now at 2. Okay. And now you have an indication if someone's waiting. So you can say if the value after I increment it is 0 or less, someone was waiting, so wake somebody up. Our cues on this, mostly going to be ordered cues. Okay, when we're studying them, we want them to be a FIFO. Okay? And why would I want to use a FIFO as opposed to just using a bag where I randomly reach in and pull someone out? Starvation. Remember that, statistics are funny little things. Okay? How many of you have ever bought a lottery ticket and didn't win? Okay. Did that surprise you? But that could go on for the rest of your life, couldn't it? Okay. And that would be starvation from our justified winnings. Right? So it turns out that having this FIFO is really, really good. Now, it turns out that I can't remember if it's our text or if it's someplace else. But sometimes you say, well, what about priorities? Okay. Odds are really good that if Bill Gates and I go into the same Sherry's and we both have to wait, he's getting service. He's going to get service before me, right? He's going to get his pancakes, blueberry pancakes, the bacon, before I do. He has a priority, probably because he owns it. Okay. But it turns out priority opens us back up to starvation. All right. And that is really, really rather problematic. We're going to spend all next week talking about scheduling, though, and we'll end the week with talking about a way to do priority schemes like this one mentions without them being unfair. Okay. So, the common example is to use study rooms. It's the same example as my restaurant one I talked about. I've got this one out here because this one I think does a really good job explaining what's going on. This one uses semaphores that are not negative. If it goes to 0, then it puts you to sleep. When you go to increment it, it'll increment it to 1, it'll look at the cue and go, oh, somebody's sleeping there, so it'll decrement it to 0 and let that person off the list. Okay, may or may not be the right approach for you, but this one uses non-negatives. All right. So, has anyone been over there and tried to get study rooms just on the fly? All right, and you're just kind of sitting around. And going, it's free. You were spinning even though you're supposed to be waiting, right? So, this can look quite familiar to people. It's good, because all we're doing is saying we start off with so many. Okay? And we say the clerk, you come up to the clerk and say, I want a room, and because they're all the same, they'll say yes or no. And no means wait. Okay. So, they're all the same, you can go anywhere. Like in the restaurant, okay, and I say all tables seat 4. Okay, make them all the same so it doesn't matter. It gets more complicated than that when you have more choices, but it's still not that bad. Okay. I like to pretend what's happening is, you know, when someone comes up, they press a button. Has anyone ever been to Mexico? Flown to Mexico or something and hit that green arrow, red arrow button? See whether or not you get to have a visit with customs. It's sort of like that. Just think about it. You go up there and it'll either say green, go and sit at the table, or red, go wait over there. Because that's what customs is all about, is waiting. And so, you know, we can, you know, go off and say, gee whiz, I know there's a room, I'll just go and find it. Any room will do, more or less.